What is up? This is the War Dog. Welcome to Comic Book Theater. Today we have a special guest, Adam Fields. Adam, what's going on, brother?
Not much, man. How are you doing?
Awesome, dude. Awesome. I've been binge watching Star Wars for the last weekend, so it's been nice and relaxing. John, how's it going, brother?
It's going, man. I ate a lot of good food over Thanksgiving. I mean, nothing makes a fat boy happy like Thanksgiving.
Oh, yeah.
My family's saying is if you leave Thanksgiving hungry, it is your own fault. And so, yeah, nobody left hungry.
Good. Yeah, I didn't leave hungry. I had like 3 or 4 plates, so.
Dude.
Yeah, I packed on some pounds this weekend.
I'm gonna have to hit a little heavy on the diet this next week to try and break even from one day of eating. So that's good stuff, man.
So just to let everybody know, Adam he's an artist, he's an illustrator, he does covers, he's a writer, he's got his own comic book called Prowl. He's working on issue number 7. So Adam, before we even get started, where can people find your work in your book?
Yeah, so I'm primarily all over Facebook. The Art of Adam Fields is my go-to place for everything art related. Midnight27studios.com is my company's website. You can go there and get directly connected with me. Instagram, AdamFields127, or Twitter, AdamFields127. That's all the social media that you can, but you can also find me at probably any con over on the west side of the country. I travel all over for different Comic Cons. I'm actually setting up at one tomorrow, so
that's very cool. And I'll put this information in the description. So if you guys want to check out Adam's work, he's a really great artist. I've seen it. So check it out. Today we're also going to talk about a little conspiracy or controversy, I should say, with Donnie Cates. John, why don't you tell us what's on the agenda today?
Right on, man. Well, I'm going to go and report from our friends over at Bleeding Cool. Donnie Cates is in the news again, and this time it's a little puzzling for somebody like me. Donnie Cates basically is having to explain to people that piracy is theft and theft is bad. It really has become kind of a storm that's been brewing for a couple of days now. And it really boggles my mind that you would have to tell somebody that, really. I mean, none of us are old enough to the point that we remember a time when you ever had to say, hey, kid, don't steal that. That's bad. Stealing is bad. Now, and especially, look, if somebody is stealing because they're trying to feed their family, you walk into the grocery store, you're starving, and you steal a loaf of bread. That's not what we're talking about here, kids. We are talking about stealing comic books. And they're actually confessing to piracy and then trying to justify it. So now, Adam, you're an artist, you're a writer. Can you think of anything in this world that would justify thievery like that?
Man, no. Piracy, just theft as a whole is a no-go for me. I mean, if you want to get, biblical about it, it's one of the 10 commandments. I mean, it's right there. Thou shalt not steal. So, I mean, it's in stone. And people don't see piracy or, I think back to the LimeWire days where they were downloading music. Just because it was a simple click of the button, you may not have stolen it, but you downloading it from somebody who uploaded it, that's in turn also kind of stealing because you didn't pay for that creator's, artwork, song or whatever. Same goes for books. I mean, we all can screenshot on our phones, whether it's watermarked or not. So if you have an iPad or tablet or even on your phone, I mean, what's to say you can screenshot all these pages? And heck, I've actually seen it really local where someone saw a poster that they liked and they screenshot it and took it to a printer. They printed it and it was just as crisp as it was hand delivered to that printer. So, I mean, it's terrifying for an artist that, you know, our stuff, we're putting our stuff out there. This is our livelihood. This is what we have worked so hard for. And anybody just with a couple click of buttons can take it. So it's kind of scary. And I feel that, you know, Donnie's right. You know, he flat out says, "Don't steal my books." So I back him up.
Well, and this is the other thing too, is they went several levels of trying to justify from the price point of the book. Hey, look, man, if you are the writer or the artist at Marvel or DC, you have no control over how much they are selling that book for. It's not Donnie's fault that Marvel wants to charge $5 or $8 for a book that he's written. That's on Marvel. Okay. Now, having said that, does that affect most artists or most writers' salaries? It really doesn't for most of them. My understanding is there's a certain threshold that Marvel and DC both, you have to meet so many units sold before you get royalties on a book.
True.
And most books don't meet that royalty. Now, having said that, a lot of these people who are pirating were never going to be customers anyway. If they couldn't get it for free, they just weren't going to get it.
No.
And that's a sad thing to say, but there were some of them that were justifying it through the price point of the book. The other people were justifying it through saying, I pirated it at first, but once I saw it and I enjoyed it, I then went and purchased the actual physical copy at my comic shop, or ordered it, or I downloaded a real digital copy of it afterwards, which that does not ring true to me at all. On a very rare occasion could I see somebody getting something for free and then being like, you know what, I enjoy that so much, I think I am going to finally do the right thing and pay for it.
Right.
Actually, John, let me jump in on this because
Sure.
There's this web page that I can pretty much read every comic book. And so, I mean, it's pirating, but I actually like the ones that I read are the ones that I buy, and I buy them because I collect comic books and I love the artwork. And there has been occasions where I've actually read a story and then I said, this was so good, I have to go and buy the comic book just so that I have it. It's like if you're starving and there's bread on the table, you know, but it's not your bread, do you eat the bread? Right. I mean,
okay. No, I would get that if it was actual starvation, Todd. That's the downside to this. I get that. Again, if you're actually starving, that's one thing. But the truth of the matter is, like what we've talked about before here, is just because Marvel is selling them at $5 to $8 a piece, or DC is doing the same thing, doesn't mean that you can't wait it out. And the vast majority of those books are going in dollar bins eventually. That's where they eventually will end up.
No,
and the reason I know, come on, man. You know, the vast majority of them end up in dollar bins. The ones that you miss out on that were really good, like something like Immortal Hulk. Okay, it didn't end up in a dollar bin, but the vast majority of those that are out are still real close to cover price. And then you're going to have a few keys in there that are more high priced, like you know, Immortal Hulk #1 is going to be more high priced. With those kind of things being said, you end up saving money if you're not buying them at cover price. Now the downside to that is your LCSs that are ordering them in, they're barely breaking even if they're selling them at dollars. They're probably losing a little bit if they're selling them in dollar bins. But you know, that's part of it. too. You know, it just is. I like I say, for me, there's not an excuse for pirating stuff like that, because we have access to other things that will entertain us. And like with you guys trying to get me on board with I'll go back to Immortal Hulk, trying to get me on board with Immortal Hulk. I chose not to, and now I'm going to have to pay the piper to get Immortal Hulk #1 when I finally get around to doing it.
Well, the comic book prices are expensive, but Adam knows, and I've had to deal with this too. I mean, actually making a comic book and printing a comic book, if you're just doing a few units, is very expensive. It's more expensive than people realize. And I've had people ask me, like, how come you got to sell this book for like $10-15? And it's like, dude, I'm not making anything, man, and I'm still selling it at this price. I mean, Adam, maybe you could weigh into that, man.
So I'd love to, and I'd love to bring this to light, because I have the amazing opportunity either at cons or when I go visit schools, or even just people in general that just want to know, well, what's the process of creating a comic book? Obviously, you just sit and you draw and then you print it. That's it. I laugh at that, because I'm like, that's the misconception. I said, so let's talk a little bit of numbers, okay? Let's say you're not like me, who can do it all at a time, not being conceited. It's just that was the best, cheapest route for me, because I knew I can't afford to pay somebody when I first got started to help out. So I had to take all the work on. So now if I want to hire, say I'm a penciler, so I will pencil everything. Someone hires me, I normally charge $50 per page to pencil. All right. So then my inker, a really good inker, I pay them anywhere from $25 to $30 per page, depending on the level of detail. Then my colorist, who, again, his skills are very good, but he doesn't have a published on, anything published. So I'm trying to build him up. I'm paying him $25 to $30 per page to color. So right there, if you're looking at a 22 to 24 page book, do the math. I mean, you're already $100 in the hole, almost a couple thousand by the time you hit print, and that's not even the printing cost. So sometimes it can be anywhere between $2 to $3 per book just to print. So when there's a book that's on the shelf for $5, just know that that's not going towards a lot for that author. And if they're a self-published person like myself, I mean, all it really is just paying us back for what we've invested. Now, I've recently hired an inker and a colorist because, I've realized taking it all on yourself is very taxing on somebody, and I would like to have some free time for my family. And I want to get back to making more bucks. So it freed me up to do more stuff that I enjoy. So to me, that it's worth the cost. And again, now that sell means more to me now that I have a team behind me. So when someone's stealing, a book or two, you're not just taking it away from that author. You're taking it away from everyone that was on that team that they're trying to get their name out there.
Absolutely. Well, and that's the other thing too, is that I was kind of trying to get at before is, Marvel, it might make a little ding on Marvel or DC to pirate, but let's say somebody pirates something from a self-published or self-owned property, that literally could be a death sentence for that line of books, because at that point you've expended all this money. People who would actually maybe be willing to buy and support you, they get it for free instead, and next thing you know, you're not being able to pay that colorist or that inker for the next book. At the very least, it delays you. Because then you have to go back to doing everything.
Yep. And then it's a domino effect. I mean, you start, it takes away. I can't pay the colorist. I can't pay the inker, and it falls back on me. Eventually, I get burned out, tired of it. I can't afford it because it takes a mental toll on all of us, an emotional toll. Ultimately, you might just kill the series if you keep stealing enough. And like you said, Marvel has the deepest pockets and all that, but still, that really shouldn't matter for a moral standpoint, because stealing is stealing.
Right.
You don't just you wouldn't go to a car lot and just take it. You can't. My favorite thing was, and I know that they're not really manufactured at all anymore, but you can't buy a Corvette with a Chevette budget. You just can't. So
Yeah.
if you don't have the money, make it a goal. Save it up.
Well, and that's kind of my point too. Is we're not talking about people stealing to feed their family or keep the lights on at their house or pay their rent. We're talking about people who are stealing comic books,
and just
and
to have it,
just to have it and enjoy it. And look, I get it. You got to enjoy stuff. Dude, go on YouTube, man. At least with YouTube, whenever people are putting stuff on YouTube, they're at least putting their own spin and adding something to the process. You'll have some people who will do almost a page by page review, which to me is borderline on it. If it's not expressly done by the publisher themselves, it's a little borderline. But I get it. It's out there, and if somebody wants to put a copyright claim against it through YouTube, they can do that. They absolutely can do that. YouTube will let them. If Todd or I were to put copyrighted bumper music on this program, guess what would happen? We get slapped with a cease and desist or a copyright claim against us immediately, even if it was something that was kind of borderline on whether it was actually either copyrighted music or just something that was super duper close.
Oh, absolutely.
I've seen it happen.
Yeah, it's happened to me on my art when I do live streams.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've stopped playing music in the background because it's picked it up just enough. It's muted it, and it's told me what countries and what songs. And I listen to Pandora, so I don't have an idea of what's going to be playing next. I just let it play. But it's Facebook and Instagram and any social media out there, they're also now starting to protect the artists. So
right.
It's obviously, one, it's an issue, and two, people are starting to pick up on it and they're starting to do something about it.
Yeah, but I with the music aspect, I think if you use music in the background of your video, that you might actually stimulate people to go out and buy that music. Like, nobody wants to watch my video and I use Motley Crue, Girls, 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 right? And and then my video gets muted and it's like, oh crap, now I gotta go and change the music. I mean, artwork, I guess it's one or the other. I mean, but yeah, when you draw something or you do something original artwork wise, I mean, if you steal it, you can't really, like with music, you can listen to it and then you want to go buy it. But with the artwork, you see it, and then, I mean,
though, Todd, it's like we were talking about before we started rolling on the show. There are a lot of different ways that people steal artwork and steal, not just pirating a full comic book. You're talking about people who are finding an image that they really like. They're using their phones that have amazing capabilities for high definition pictures, taking it to somewhere like Kinko's and blowing it up and having a poster made without having to pay the artist. Those kind of things are happening. You've got artists stealing from other artists that we've talked about before, going back to some of our earliest podcasts, where well-known cover artists are stealing from other artists You have people stealing stuff off of Facebook and then merging two images together and trying to call it their own, when you can definitely see a stylistic difference on this side and then this side. And you look at it and say, no, there's no continuity between those. You separate them out and you're like, oh yeah, that was done by this artist, this was done by that artist. They just popped them together and tried to call it their own. That's theft too, really. I mean, whenever it comes down to it, that's keeping somebody else from being able to do what it is that they do and make a living at it as well. You know, it's there's all sorts of different ways that this can go down. And, you know, I think it's our responsibility as a community to stand up against it, because if we don't, eventually the community will eat itself. No, there will be no artists left because they can't make a living doing what they want to do. And that means that they have to go and do, you know, that they have to go do graphic design for corporations and do brochures instead if they want to do art at all. Maybe they get a 9-to-5 like what I've got, and you know, end up doing something that's just soul crushing, you know.
Yeah. Let me tell you, that's what I went to school for, and there's a reason why I started doing illustration. So yeah, I don't want to go back to that. So help me out here.
You know, the one thing, and I mean, when we were growing up, right, you could go into a grocery store and you could get a comic book for $1, right? And now it's like you go into the comic book store. I mean, there's some of the comic books, like, you know, the Black series. I think it's the Black series from
Black
DC.
Label.
Yeah, Black Label series from DC. That's like, it's like $8 a book, and it's like, I mean, how are we gonna? It seems like, you know, every time that somebody leaves comic books, they raise the price up. That's their solution, is we're gonna continuously raise the price up. And I mean, it makes me think, like, you know, maybe we need to go back to newsprint. I mean, people seem to have dug newsprint and don't mind newsprint. I mean, that one company does the newsprint for what, like $1.50 a pop?
Alterna,
yeah.
Alterna.
Yep.
You know, I don't know. I mean, what do you guys think? I mean, I just think as people leave, the price keeps going up, and then some of us suckers just keep buying it, and then all of a sudden, eventually, it's gonna be too much for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I've looked at the Alterna as a publisher, and I have nothing against newsprint. You know, I figure if that's kind of the feel that you want for your story, because not only, you know, having that book in hand, it's not just reading the story, it's also the experience of, you know, the page turns and the way it feels. You know, I actually went to school for art, and the one thing that we talked about was the experience, you know, of package design and all that. So I actually even look at the paper quality. So alternative, you know, the newsprint wouldn't really justify my colors because it would bleed too much. But if I was to do, say, a black and white with maybe just a splash of red on there, almost the Sin City type, I absolutely do newsprint. I think that's awesome. I think it's up to the artist and the publisher to figure out what paper stock and what's going to look best for their story.
Right. And that's where actually I was thinking about going with this too, is unfortunately the vividness of the coloring that's being done these days, the digital coloring that's really, really almost lifelike in some cases, you really can't do the newsprint. But I'm with you. If it's black and white, if it's just a 4-color story, if it's something that's fairly basic in its premise, and you're okay with having that nostalgic feel to it, the newsprint would actually benefit you because it would set you apart from everybody else.
Absolutely.
I mean, you know, there are plenty of us guys who go dollar bin diving and look at these old books, and look, I know for a fact I'm not the only old geezer out there that buys an older comic book, and when he gets it home or whenever he's getting ready to inspect it, whenever whenever it's that time to pony up, it maybe do some last minute adjustments with the price and do a little bit of finagling here or there. I'm not the only old geezer that looks at a book like, say, I've got What If number 36 here from series 1 of the, or I'm sorry, from series 2 of the What Ifs. I'm not the only one that whenever I open up it out of the bag and board, that I might take a little sniff of said book.
Oh
And
yeah.
just that old paper newsprint, I know it's probably in the long run not good for you, but there's something nostalgic about that old paper smell. You're not getting that from anything that's got this glossy paper in it. That it's just not the same. So if you're going for nostalgia, then yeah, I think newsprint is definitely a way to set yourself apart if that's the route you want to go.
Yeah, but like the Donnie Cates argument, like don't pirate my stuff. Well, I mean, like if you can't afford the price of the comics because there's so much, but you still want to read the comics, then how do you get them? I mean, the comic industry almost has to like especially the big publishers have to figure out a way to make it so that, like, if I gave my son $5, he's not going to go buy a comic book. He's going to buy 3 candy bars, or something else,
and a pack of Pokemon or something like that for a card game. No, you're right. We've talked about that before too. The entertainment dollar that a kid is given these days is spent much differently than it was with us. Like you said, mom and dad gave you $3. You could go get 2 comic books, candy bar, and a pop, and maybe even have a little change left over at the end of all of that to save, so the next time you could get 3 comic books instead of 2. So the price point is much different there. And you're right, kids have so many other options. Now I will say, for the Black Friday sale at one of my local comic shops, I was very encouraged to see whenever I walked in, it's a small mom and pop shop, man. They don't do any new issues. They only do back issues. There were 4 kids in there that were high school age and below when I got there. There were 2 others that showed up later while we were standing around just shooting the breeze. So, and that was all within like a 2-hour visit to the comic book shop. 6 kids showing up there for Black Friday sale, and they bought comics. They actually did not buy any of the other merch that was in there, the t-shirts or the pops or any of that. They went strictly with, hey, this is what, we came and got comic books. One of the little girls is a fan of Chewbacca, so she had a stack this thick of Chewbacca books from Marvel, and was loving it. She got them all out of the dollar bin, man. So, like you say, there is a future there with kids. I know that may be a story that's told fewer and further between than it ever has been. But there are kids that will buy comic books with their money, their extra money that they have.
Oh, absolutely. I totally agree with that.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think there's like when you create a comic book and you have a little volume, like I created a comic book and we printed like 300 copies. I mean, it's expensive. And I mean, Adam knows it's expensive when it's a small volume. When it's a bigger volume, you can charge a cheaper price. And I mean, the big comic book companies have to do a better job of, I think, making things a little bit more affordable for the fans and making things something to draw people in. I mean, I think Kickstarter and Indiegogo is cool for us independent creators, that we can use that and put our stuff out there and gain an audience. But to attract more people to the whole comic book industry, I think they need to find a way to, make the prices a little bit more affordable for the common fan.
Oh, I don't disagree. I don't disagree with that at all. Other things I think that they could do better for the bigger comic book uh, publishers. I honestly, personally believe that they could take a few chances on some lesser known properties or some creator owned properties and publish them. And I think that that would go a long way too. I mean, you look back at something and people who are fans of creator owned properties can point to this. Robert Kirkman had to lie to the people that were getting ready to publish for him and say that his story had, yeah, some zombies in it, but really it was aliens. That's the way that story goes. One of the most successful creator owned franchises that are out there, and he had to lie to get in because nobody was willing to take a chance on zombies. I mean that's where I look at some of these guys and say, yeah, you're going to miss probably 7 or 8 times out of 10. You're going to miss, and you're going to print up a series of 5 or 10 comic books, and they're going to suck. But guess what, guys? 5 or 6 times out of 10 right now, you're printing up comic books of well-known properties, and they still suck.
Adam,
I mean, go ahead.
let me go to Adam. Adam, when you made Prowl, did you send it to comic book companies to see if you could get it published?
No, I actually just did it straight myself. I had heard some horror stories that kind of terrified me of that, away from having that self-published. I wanted to have full control over my story. I wanted to make sure that no one else was able to sort of contaminate what I wanted to do or get in the way. And another thing, at the time, I didn't have a team to rely on. So I knew I wouldn't be able to meet the deadlines. I wanted to sort of build the fan base before approaching a major publisher, because a lot of people will go directly to the publishers and say, hey, I got this amazing story. I have 1 or 2 issues out. I'm working on this one. That's great and all. But I wanted to be able to deliver, here's a great story. Here's what I've already done. Here's the fan base for that story. Let's see what we can do with it now. So that was kind of my thinking.
Yeah, see, with mine, I did reach out to a bunch of comic companies. I mean, I got responses back. Nobody said yes, but I ended up doing a Kickstarter. It worked out, but I mean, it's a shame that there's not a publisher out there that is open to taking chances with more people or more open-minded. I don't know. I sent it. Well, never mind. But I got responses. That was the one good feeling about it.
That's good. And that also makes it, makes you realize that, yeah, people do look at it. So you do have to respect those companies. There's been some where I've sent emails and they're still off, and it was years ago. So I never heard anything back. So just the fact that you even heard anything back, that's encouraging.
I would think so too, because I mean, the old adage that time is money. It took them some time to actually look at your stuff and then say, yeah, that's probably not for us. Even if it's something that really should have been right down their alley. I know that basically everybody understands this is a podcast that revolves around a lot of stuff that we see in the Collector's Corner on Facebook, that kind of stuff. It's kind of the Collector's Corner podcast, not officially, of course, but it's one of those things of, we see a lot of independent guys doing their own thing. Adam, Antonio D, with the Changeling, We've got the guys at Equinox Comics that I deal with locally. There's a lot of guys. I'm kind of, the more I think about it, the more I think to myself, yes, there should be somebody out there that is willing to help out these creator owned properties, not necessarily make all of them into a shared universe like a DC or a Marvel, but just say, hey guys, let us assist you and let's make it where fans can get a taste of it. And yeah, it would be a sizable risk, but you don't really get a sizable reward without taking that sizable risk, you know?
Yeah. Because that's kind of what, I've always had my eyes set on Image, just because that seems to be everyone's go-to for a indie project. But I want to actually do a lot more soul searching and say I want to pick the right publisher for my stuff when the time comes to pitch.
Yeah, I thought about Image too. I sent it to Image and I actually got a response from them, which I was actually shocked. It's just they came out with Battle Pug and I was like, oh my god, it's about a big dog that I haven't read the story, but it was like, oh my god, I mean, I got beat out by Battle Pug. It was a little disheartening.
Yeah.
No offense to the guy that wrote Battle Pug. Congratulations. I'm happy for you. But, it is too bad that they don't take chances and say like, oh, you know what, we'll make this $1 comic and see if people like it.
Yeah. That just reminds me of one of the most obscure things that has become one of the most iconic IPs in our industry, and that's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I just got done watching the Toys That Made Us on Netflix for like the 5th time, and I absolutely love the TMNT segment that they did, because what is the most obscure thing, and someone actually took a risk on it, and now look at it. It's like one of the biggest things in the world. So yeah, you have to look kind of outside the box and get a little uncomfortable. So yeah, I really wish more publishers would, not look at the mainstream and like what is popular now, but what can we actually have fun with and what can potentially be the next biggest thing.
Well, and that's one reason why I think that if Marvel and DC, because we all see their Walmart special books that they have going in and stuff. That's where I kind of feel like they've missed the mark. They do these super specials and they'll cram 3 or 4 stories into a 100-page giant, but instead of doing 3 stories for heroes, like one for Batman, one for Swamp Thing, one for Zatanna, and then doing a third one of a completely unknown character or an underutilized character, they go ahead and slam Wonder Woman in there too. Yeah. And so instead of keeping the broadness of their universe, it feels like all of these universes that used to be very all-encompassing have all really homogenized down. They're very safe because they're all corporate interests. You got Warner Brothers and Disney. They can't have any of this hoo-ha going around and taking any risks. They've just got to go with the properties that they know already work. Like even Naomi. Naomi at one point was a super hot commodity in the secondary market, but the truth is, I don't know that have they done anything with her of any note really, or because honestly, as best as I can tell, most of the speculation has died down considerably on Naomi, and she was one of the better received new properties that DC has introduced in the last year and a half. But like you say, I haven't done anything with her. So what was the point?
Well, I think it's hype, and then and once again, I think we come back to the price. I mean, the problem with the piracy thing, I think it still comes back to the price. I also think, like we were talking about, I mean, they just don't take any chances on, like, let's just throw out some comics and have them affordable for people just so that they could read them. You know, everything when you go into the comic book shop is $5. I used to go in and get like 7 comic books. Now I go in and I get like 2. And I mean, it's sad, but I mean, like I said, I just think as people leave and people do what I did, they just keep jacking up the price. And eventually they're going to jack up the price so much that it's just going to kill those brands. So it's like they haven't tried to figure out, like, what do we do next? How do we repair this so that we can bring more people in, so that people can buy more comic books? You know, I don't know what the answer is. I mean, maybe you guys do.
Well, I think that Indiegogo and GoFundMe and Kickstarter, these are all ways for sure to bypass all of that. Now, the downside to that is if you're not working towards having a regular issue as well, where you can distribute it to comic book shops and stuff, you'll end up cutting the comic book stores completely out of the mix. And at that point, and look, I get it too. If your Kickstarter is ridiculously successful, let's use Brian Polito as an example.
Exactly who I was thinking.
That cat, just whether you're a fan of Lady Death universe or not, you have to respect the hustle that he has and the fire that he has and the way that he promotes his books. He's not just doing Kickstarters. He's all over social media. He does interviews with basically anybody that will ask him, except for us. I say that a little tongue in cheek. A little over a year ago, before we started the podcast, I asked him to do an interview on Facebook with me. It was kind of a prototype for this show, honestly, to be frank about it. And he said he would do it, and then we just kept being like two ships passing in the night. It never worked out schedule-wise. I get it. It's totally cool, man. Dude is busy, but Brian, if anybody's listening, they want to remind Brian that he can come on the Comic Book Theater podcast and pub his stuff. He's more than welcome. But anyway, I get a little sidetracked. But you get what I'm saying of some people are just ridiculously successful at those Kickstarters. So it doesn't even, if they never send another comic book to an LCS again, it won't impact their business at all, really. Because 99% what they're, and I say that a little tongue in cheek, I don't know how much he's sending out to LCSs. I get the feeling he probably is sending out quite a bit, but I don't know what his margins are on that compared to what they are for Kickstarter.
Yeah, but do you have to factor in boobs into that equation? Because, you know, I've seen Kickstarters with people, with chicks with boobs, and they all kick butt.
Jason, you know? Hey, dude, Jason Hare just your artist just dropped some awesome art in the collector's corner of a Red Sonja, man. So don't tell me you can't have that in the crew for the very next very next episode that you guys do there, or the next issue you do. Now, Adam, your guy with Prowl, has a Kickstarter ever entered your mind for doing the next Prowl, or are you pretty? Dude, you think you have a pretty good model already?
No, I don't, and I'm so glad you brought up Kickstarter, because here's the thing, and I have thought about this long and hard, and kind of issue 1 through 7. It was kind of my very first attempt at anything comic related, so a lot of mistakes were made, a lot of planning went into it. But on the execution side, I feel like I fell short, because here it's been 2 years, and issue 7 is just finally coming out. We're wrapping up the arc. All right. So to me, that is way too long. Managing inventory is very difficult by yourself, or my wife helps me here and there. And we're looking at getting an intern to help. It's a lot to juggle. So I've actually looked at Kickstarter, and my idea is kind of doing the Netflix model, where instead of releasing single issues, I'm just going to go straight graphic novel, one for the year, and have like tie-ins throughout the year. Within the Kickstarter, it would actually, I would offer variant covers for that, exclusive prints, all the same stuff everyone offers, except not cutting out the LCSs, but making a specific LCS tier so that they too can get in on the Kickstarter, back it, and they would get exclusive stuff for their stores. So have like a retailer bundle, so to speak. So trying to marry both of those.
That's a really good way to do that. I know that was it the Tales from the Curio Shop, Todd, that had that? So there was one of the Kickstarter folks that we've talked to this last year that actually did do that. They'd send you, it was like 10 copies and a swag pack with a poster and stuff like that for a certain tier. And yes, you were getting the units cheaper, so you could mark them up and sell them at cover price and make your money on them. And you'd have a poster and have some swag to give away if you needed it or whatever to kind of help promote the book. I think that's a really good idea for future Kickstarters to kind of marry the two. And then you still don't have to worry about Diamond. You're your own distributor at that point.
Exactly. And I've been asked numerous times if I would ever go through Diamond and all that for distribution. And it's, to me, I don't know enough about that side. I'm not a publisher. I'm a self-publisher, which is completely different. I only know how to market my own product, and doing press releases and stuff like that. That's not my strong suit. I've got my book in a few stores. That's only because I've knocked on their door and they're in driving distance. This has been a huge learning experience, and I've talked to so many people along the way who have been very successful, and I've also talked to people who have fell short, and I've learned just as much from both sides of the fence. So I think moving forward, I really like this idea, and I'm excited to give it a shot, because then I can actually set expectations for fans so that they know, hey, in every January you're going to get a new book on top of like an annual, single tie-in issue that sort of bridges the gap between volumes. Or who knows, I might even throw in a special, Halloween edition or a free comic book day edition or something like that. It's really endless. That's kind of why I also didn't go with the publisher, because I like having these ideas, and I like to be able to execute them on my own terms.
Yeah, I definitely think you should look at Kickstarter and consider, doing a 4-book compendium. The one thing is, like, when you're not a graphic novel collector, right, then you still want to have the ability to buy the first appearance of a character, right? And so I think you have to have that availability as well. Like, you put on the graphic novel, and then people will come to your site and say, I really like your story, I want the first appearance. And you have to have that available. Obviously, you've got to probably restrict the number of copies, but when you're a small publisher, I mean, you're really only got so many copies as it is.
It's true. Yeah. And I have to restock, here and there, and that's tough. It's really tough, because sometimes I'll have 50 of one issue and 200 of the other, and counts are always off. And to me, this is going to be a little easier to manage. And sorry. Yeah.
Adam, do you have any other stories that you're working on outside of Prowl?
Oh yeah. I'm gonna go grab water real quick.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hold on.
Go ahead. Yeah, one thing I'll say while Adam's not here and can't hear me is I've seen a couple of his live drawings he does on Facebook. He does a really good job of being entertaining while he's doing his live drawings on Facebook, as well as staying very focused on the art at hand. I know Cam Hewitt, multiple time guest here on the show, has highly endorsed Adam's artwork. You know, he's got several of his Deadpools. I mean,
Deathstroke.
Deathstroke. He'll. I really fully expect to hear Cam say something about that in the comments later. But anyway, we love Cam. Good dude. But yeah, I know Cam is a huge fan. Adam has a good following through the Collector's Corner, as well as outside the Collector's Corner as well. He's and we encourage our artists that we claim as ours. They're not really ours, y'all. They don't belong to us. You know what I mean? We just like to claim artists because they're cool, and we want to support corner artists. That's kind of one of those things that we talked about corner artists before and supporting them, and that's one of the coolest things you can do is find an artist, and if you really enjoy their work, help support them.
Well, I think there's a lot of really talented artists out there that just don't have the opportunity, and it would be nice if there was more opportunity for more of these awesome artists to be able to show their artwork, to be able to do the things that they want to do. I mean, it's kind of sad that availability isn't there. And I mean, like I said, I mean, you could have Alterna does $150 books, I mean, you could literally have a company that just has like outside the box authors and artists. I mean, as long as it doesn't offend anybody, right? I mean, you should. It almost needs something like that, like a jump starter or somebody with that kind of an idea to be able to just jumpstart the industry a little bit.
I would wholeheartedly support them if I could find them. I think a lot of us have that idea, but we also have enough common sense to know that we're not smart enough to be the guy to actually execute said idea. So that's what holds a lot of us back from doing stuff like that. But there again, we've talked about it a little bit before. Sometimes you got to make that leap out there and see what happens. So, hey man, maybe somebody who's listening to the podcast, this is their aha moment that says, hey, I know a little bit about that kind of stuff. I can be that person. I can be that woman. I can be that man that does that. And who knows, man? Who knows?
Yeah, just send me a little bit of capital and I can make it happen. I already printed one book. I know I know a little bit about it, but yeah, it would be. I think it comes down to capital and being able to have the money to be able to execute that plan. But
Adam, you back with us, bud?
No, I don't think so.
Don't think so either. It's fine. So, real quick, one other thing. I don't know if this might be a little slightly off topic, but not really. Tom King was good at shoving his foot in his mouth the other day on Twitter as well. Not sure if you guys saw that or not, but basically Tom King was saying that Frank Miller and he listed off 3 or 4 other people who should be credited as co-creators of Batman. And so, hey, look, I ain't gonna lie to nobody. I went ahead and tweeted back at him on this one because it was so dumb that I mean, how do you address that other than to say they can be influencers, they could be influencing artists or writers for Batman? Bear with me for just a moment. Are we there? Are we back, Todd? Can you hear me, Todd? I know you're muted.
Yeah. I'm muted. Go ahead. Keep talking.
Sorry, buddy. No, you're fine. So, but you can be influential artists, but you can't be a co-creator. There's only one team that created Batman. That's it. That's it.
Well, according to Bob Kane, there's only one guy that created Batman.
Right, but we all know that Bill Finger was involved too. So we're going to go with what actually happened. Not just Bob Kane. But having said that, like you say, it's one of those deals of I don't think that you just randomly start adding in writers or artists that, yes, while they were super influential, did not create them.
Yeah.
It's okay to be influential. You don't have to be on par with being the creator. You know what I'm saying? It would be like, for instance, Todd McFarlane all of a sudden wanting creator credit on Spider-Man because he was the first one to do the spaghetti noodle looking webs that everybody tries to emulate all the way through the 90s into right now. Yeah, me too, Adam. Me too.
Yes.
You're back with us.
I'm back. Man,
Adam
technical difficulties.
It's fine. I'm just glad you didn't drown in your cup of water. That's what
I've been here for about 20 minutes.
So, but you get what I'm saying, Adam.
Oh, yeah.
If you let somebody else draw Prowl for a couple of issues, would you be okay with them then saying to you, "Hey, I want co-creator credit"?
That's tough. Since I created Prowl and sort of the whole story behind him, if they thought of a cool idea for him that, I could see contributing down the road and like tying into the full story, I would give him credit for that aspect, but not full credit for the character itself.
Right. And look, let's be real here. There are people out there that created certain villains.
Mm-hmm.
They get the creator credit. Bob Dixon gets creator credit for Bane. Okay? Mm-hmm. He gets creator credit for that because he wrote that story. He's kind of one of the ones that was the mind behind birthing Bane. So he gets credit for that, but just because he created Bane doesn't mean he gets creator credit for Batman 2.
No.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
And that's where I come from, that Tom King has kind of lost his ever-living mind. And basically, yes, I did tweet back at him and said, no, that's not the way this works. They can be influential, but they can't be called co-creators. But not only that, of all the people in the world, he should know, Tom King should know, words mean something, man. Be clear and concise. Don't tell me that this guy or that lady should get co-creator credit when that's really not who they are. Just use your words, writer. Use your words.
Well, I mean, hasn't enough been taken away from Bill Finger, and now like Tom King's coming in and saying that now these other people are co-creators? I mean, look, Batman didn't exist before Bob Kane and Bill Finger created him, and then everything that happened after, is a result of their creation. I mean, that's the way I feel about it. And
I wholeheartedly agree. Wholeheartedly agree. They are the foundation. Everything else that somebody like Frank Miller did for Batman could not have been done without the foundation of Batman being laid. After that, there's really, I hate to say this, we're a podcast, we kind of live on discussion. To me, after that, there's really no discussion about who could be considered a co-creator.
No, and I mean that actually kind of brings us into the whole problem with like the movies that they're making today. Like, you know, Terminator the new Terminator movie did terrible. Charlie's Angels did terrible. I mean, because they're just piggybacking off of what somebody else did, right? I mean,
well, they're bastardizing the original so far that it's almost unrecognizable. I mean, that's just my 2 cents on those.
They're just trying to get as much money out of it and suck as much money out of it as possible by just killing the original. Even like with Star Wars, I mean, they just, I don't know. You know, the way that they handled killing off Han Solo, killing off Luke. I know you probably hate getting into Star Wars again, but I mean, you know, come on. It's sad.
I'm sad that they haven't brought back Darth Jar Jar. So see, we can all be sad about something Star Wars related, Todd.
Dude, I just watched I just watched The Phantom Menace the other night, and honestly, I don't believe in Darth Jar Jar anymore. I watched it, and it was just more like George Lucas was trying to make a kids movie and put it in a childish character. I just, you know, after watching it, I just can't go with it anymore. I'm sorry, John.
It's okay. I'll rewatch it for both of us and come back with the right opinion on that, Todd.
Sounds good.
So, anyway, Adam, you have any opinions on Darth Jar Jar?
Oh my God, Jar Jar, that guy. Now, I've heard the stories that, you know, they animated him as the Sith Lord and all that. I kind of want to go back now and watch and see it for myself. I think it'd be kind of fun, but I don't know if we'll ever see him again.
You know, the actor who did the body for him walking through, he has said that he would have liked for Jar Jar. See, I'm so used to calling him Darth Jar Jar. He would like for Jar Jar to have a meaningful, some type of death scene, at least in one of the movies.
Yeah.
But I'm with you where I really think that ship has sailed. Really, the only way you'll see Darth Jar Jar is in the comics. You might see him in the comics, and you might see him in fan fiction. That would be about it.
Yeah.
So,
or, you know, let us see in this next movie, let us see something Gundam related and like a headstone or something, you know. That would be,
yeah,
I'd be okay with that.
I'd be okay with that. I'd be okay with that too. That wouldn't hurt my feelings.
Let's tie it all together.
Yeah, a headstone would probably satisfy a lot of people. I've heard some of the craziest rumors about this next movie. Like, everybody dies, and it's like, oh my God, I can't believe it. And then I seen somebody write this one comment that said, well, did you ever imagine that Luke would throw the lightsaber over his shoulder? And I said, I was like, holy shit, you know, that's a really good point.
Right?
I don't put anything past him anymore, man, because the truth is, if it's going to cause controversy, they think it's going to sell tickets, and if they think it's going to sell tickets, by God, they're willing to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know an author, she loves like ripping the heart out of all her readers. So, yeah, and it honestly gets them hooked. So, yeah, if they think they can profit off of it, you know, they're going to do it.
That's a good That's a good point, because John said that The Mandalorian is kind of predictable. And I started thinking after he said that The Mandalorian's predictable is, can they make Star Wars that isn't predictable? I mean, the Empire Strikes Back was probably the one unpredictable outcome, right? Because nobody expected that. But can you make another Star Wars movie that would be unpredictable? I don't know.
I don't know either, man. I mean, the downside, this is the downside to it. Anything that they've done that's been unpredictable has been met with, has kind of been poo-pooed, you know? Like you said, Luke chucking the lightsaber over his shoulder and stuff. Nobody saw that coming, and it was like a kick in the gut, really. I don't know, but like you were saying too, we've talked about before. Game of Thrones had a craptacular last season, basically, with the finale being not at all what anybody expected or wanted. Robert Kirkman with The Walking Dead finally just said, "I've had enough. I'm done," and kills Rick. And the very next issue that's out is the last one. You know, it's like there's a lot of that kind of thing going on. I think it does make some money. I mean, I hate to say that, because it irks me and I don't always like the execution of it, but it does make money.
It does.
All right, so I think we covered everything, but so for Adam, why don't you tell us a little bit about Prowl before we leave, so that if anybody makes it to this point of the video, they can actually learn a little bit about Prowl and what you've written so far.
Yeah. So, well, I think before, I about died earlier. You asked me if I'd wrote anything else. But I've actually worked with a bunch of other authors and some nonprofits on books. One called Blue Coat Missionary, which is a organization up in Cleveland that closed the homeless. So that was a really fun project. I've done Zombie Office, a company out of Spain, but overall, a lot of people do know me for Prowl. It's kind of what got me started. It's a story I had in the 8th grade. I've tweaked it since then and decided I'm now going to make this happen, and I'm going to learn along the way, because I didn't go to school for comics and publishing, all that. So I did it. But so the premise of Prowl is basically, it's a small town. A guy finds a stone necklace, and when he puts it on, it turns into a werewolf. He takes off. He's back to human. Kind of rewriting the whole mythos of the werewolf. So no bite, no curse, no, full moon. It's straight up, when he wants it to happen, it happens. The whole plot's built around where that stone come from and why does it turn him into a wolf. And he decides, I'm going to clean up this town. This town's going to hell real quick, and I'm going to fix it. So that's kind of where we're at, is just sort of learning about him and learning about the town. I haven't dove deep into the overall story yet, but we are going to get there very quickly in volume 2, which will be set for late next year. We're already working on the script, and I've already got my team lined up. So it's a real exciting book, series that I've sort of came to really grow fond of. This would be the first thing that I've actually wrote. You really do fall in love with your characters, and writing certain scenes. It's like, wow, that hurts me. I'm hoping it hurts the writers, or they feel this sort of emotion.
Yeah, I totally understand that. I mean, because my book's kind of funny, and so a lot of the funny things that I write, I mean, I just laugh as I'm writing it, and then I hope that other people laugh when they read it. So I mean, I completely understand. I mean, you fall in love with your characters, and you almost like become part of the story you're just kind of in the background, but you're part of the story.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Because you're the first one that's actually seeing the story come to life. And if it gets you excited, then it's, it's going to hopefully get your readers excited. And that does come through in the writing. So it's taken a little while to get issue 7 out, mainly because, one, I didn't feel the script was strong enough. So I actually scrapped it and rewrote it. So the delay has literally been on me, but then it's also been on because I will do other people's books and projects before my own. So that's what made me realize I need a team, because while I'm sitting here working on their stuff, somebody else could be inking and coloring. So that's kind of what woke me up. And I absolutely love it.
So real quick, I have a question for both of you guys. And I know that this is probably something that would be well down the road here. Are we ever going to see a Crew Prowl crossover? Is that something that you guys can work out?
I'm up for any crossover. I think it's awesome.
Because Todd's got aliens and killer clowns and stuff like that. I could totally see some werewolves running through in a couple of panels, if nothing else, or a werewolf like jumping in to save the crew last second and then just wandering away with no explanation. Something fun and cool like that. I could totally.
That would be completely awesome, but you're giving too much credit to the Crew. I mean, maybe the Crew would appear in the in the Prowl book. He's on 7 right now. I'm on number 1, so maybe my guys could be at the at a soda shop or something.
Reading a Prowl. So in Zombie Office, I did part of the story takes place in a comic shop. And the author actually told me, he said, hey, put Prowl in there somewhere. So you see a kid reading a Prowl comic book, because I think issue 1 came out around the same time as Zombie Office came out. So yeah, there's a little sneak peek or a little teaser of Prowl within the story. So
a friend of mine, Caesar Crawford, is also a self-published guy. He's done a couple of different titles for varying degrees of success, and one of the things he did with one of his Kickstarters, and something just kind of for both of you guys to kind of mill over, he actually offered as one of his Kickstarter tiers that if you were willing to pay a certain amount, you could be killed by the zombies in his story.
I've seen that.
Have you seen that
idea? Yeah, I've loved that idea.
We were in the comic shop talking, just bouncing ideas around, and he was talking about his Kickstarter coming up, and somebody in the shop said something like that, and he's like, done doing that. And next thing you know, and so it was great because in that issue, and I've got one of those issues hanging around here, there's like 4 or 5 people that were standing there in the shop at that point that all went and donated to the Kickstarter. And next thing you know, they're at first trying to make a very valiant stand against, and about 2 pages later, dead. And it was cool. It was totally cool. And how many actually been in a comic book? I can say just by sheer dumb luck in association with people who know what's going on, I've been on a cover of a comic book about that big in a sea of other people that are way cooler than I am. And so they hid me in there with them. That's about it. That's my claim to fame of comic books. That and having my name written as a producer on Steam Age Wasteland. Something like that on Steam Age Wasteland, the pinup that we did. That's it.
Oh, yeah.
So, and again, that's just by sheer dumb luck and being associated with people who are way smarter and cooler than I am. I'm just riding coattails, baby. So,
I think that's tough. I mean, I think you got to assume that people are going to actually pay for that. I mean, because we had talked about doing that. Ron Zabala, who is also an exceptional Kickstarter guy, suggested that, and it's like, well, is anybody going to pay $100 or $150 or $200 to be in a comic book? I don't know. I don't want to take that risk. And then, like, the other thing is, if they're in the comic book on one page, do they assume that they're going to be in the comic book for other stories? Like, there's some explanation that needs to be done.
Yeah, I don't remember how in depth he was, other than that he was going to kill them in the book, which it was very convenient for him because it was a zombie type inspired book. So much easier for it to be a one-time, one-shot, no explanation. You're going to get killed by zombies. Are you in? That kind of thing. So it may not necessarily translate directly across, but I mean, like you say, food for thought on something like that. I do know that there are people who would pay. Because like I say, I witnessed them paying for it in Caesar's book, and it was a good idea for him at the time. It paid off for him. And there again too, what would be necessarily the harm too in having an extra built-in character that maybe shows up conveniently at the right time? That yes, they showed up in that one Kickstarter for this. Well, I'm going to bring them back for a panel here. They're going to be driving a car by and pick our guys up while they're hitchhiking, or in the background at the mall.
Like a Stan Lee cameo.
Yeah, a Stan Lee cameo, just randomly showing up in a crowd somewhere. It just like I say, it's all in how you as the writer and the artist decide to use them in the future, if you choose to use them. I would think by just them volunteering their money to be in a single issue would also grant you their rights to their likeness in future issues. That would be my guess.
I would absolutely write that up as in sort of a contract, just so there was no question down the road.
That's a good idea. That's a good idea.
Yeah, I wanted to be really careful about that, but I think really, like Adam and I, we need to make something with boobs. I mean, boobs is what sells.
I told you, Jason Hare does that, man.
Yeah, the thing is, and I don't know if
I think Adam probably can do that too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I have no doubt that he can. The difficult thing is that, like, I've tried to write stories about female characters with boobs, and I struggle. Like, I can write a story about a male character because I understand being a male, right? But
you seem to be caught up on one aspect of the female, though. That's your problem.
No, that's really not it.
I know, I'm just messing.
I mean, that's what sells Kickstarters. I mean, I've seen lots of Kickstarters that sell that way, but I mean, Adam, have you found this problem? Have you found this problem that it's easier to write dudes than it is to write female characters?
I get told all the time by author E.E. Martin that I need more female characters in my stories. I said, I don't know how to write for a woman. It's just it's so tough. But I do know I need more. So what I'm finding, I'm actually currently working on a couple new books. I find myself, I purposely made the lead a female, so it's forcing me to write for that.
I feel like, well, especially for me not being a trained writer at all, if I were to explore something like that, I would feel real trepidation. I would feel like it would be a dangerous way to go, because I would make some misstep. Because and again, you guys are better at this than I am, obviously, because you're doing it. I would feel real trepidation about writing a woman, just because, like you say, I'm not a woman. I ain't never lived as a woman. I don't really see things from a woman's point of view. When me and my wife talk about stuff, I love my wife. She loves me as much as she can because I'm kind of an idiot. But the truth of the matter is, I would be perplexed trying to write something from a woman's point of view, because I'm getting ready to say something that's gonna offend a lot of people. There's differences between men and women. Differences between the way we act. There's differences between the way we think.
Mm-hmm.
There just is. Now, it's really crappy that that's controversial in today's society, but it is. It doesn't make it any less true.
You know, one of my favorite characters is Princess Leia, because she's feminine and strong. She's really a well-written character, and I mean, you see this a lot with female characters today, that they're very masculine. And I like female characters that to use their femininity to be able to influence, other characters. And that's what was so amazing about Princess Leia, was that she was beautiful and influential, and she used her femininity, but she was still strong. And I guess it's difficult for me, like, to write that. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, I don't disagree with you. And look, man, one of my favorite characters is Power Girl. I like Poison Ivy. I like reading about female characters. The guys over at Equinox have a main character. Her name is Rachel Strand. She is she's a strong female lead as well, and I enjoy reading stories about her. But to me, there's a bit of a difference between enjoying it when it's well done by somebody else, and then trying to emulate that, or trying to recreate that in an original way still. So, but anyway, we could probably go on about strong female leads for another hour and a half if we wanted to. Todd, you want to wrap us up on this episode?
Yeah. Okay. So, we had an awesome guest, Adam Fields. He's got an awesome book, Prowl. I've heard good things about it. I want to check it out. So I'll talk to Adam.
Absolutely.
I'm going to put his pages, his web pages, and places where you can find him in the description, so that you can check him out. Definitely check him out. He is a really good artist, and he's just doing the work. And thank you, Adam. Thanks for joining us. Adam, do you have any final thoughts that you want to toss in here?
No, man, I just appreciate being able to get on here and talk. If you guys, one of the biggest things that I enjoy is meeting people, whether it's talking on here or face to face. So if they want, to follow me on Facebook, or even just go to my website, I have a list of all the cons I'm going to be at for this year. And I'd love to be able to meet people, much like Cam, who comes to Free Comic Book Day. And anytime I'm over at Bell Book and Comics, he always pops in. So I really try to get to know fans and people, personally. So I'd love to be able to shake your hand and get a picture or two. Okay. That's it.
That sounds good, man. I'll say that I actually have read issues 1 and 2 of Prowl through the Collector's Corner double-sized issue that came out, that Adam was kind enough to do for us, and it was good, man. It was good. I've got to, how it goes, man. You got to get a list of your priorities down, and I'm glad that we finally had Adam on. Adam has been on our short list of guests to have on for quite a while, and I'm glad that we're getting to, obviously it's not the final podcast of the year, but one of the final podcasts of the year, and we're closing in on a full year of doing podcasts now. I'm glad we got Adam in here, man, because like you say, been on the short list for a while. I definitely want to have Adam back on. When the Kickstarter shows up and that kind of stuff, man, let us know.
Yeah, you guys, absolutely. It's my pleasure, and I always appreciate it. I'm always down for a good talk.
Yeah, this was great, and thank you both for joining me today. I don't have anything controversial to say today, except for, never mind. I won't say it. Go out, buy comic books. Don't pirate. We need, if you don't buy comic books, the industry won't exist. So, you got to buy the comic books for the industry to exist, or guys like Donnie Cates, Adam, myself, we won't be able to make comic books. So get out there, buy comic books. We love you all. Peace out, everybody.
Be good at it, guys.